welcome to Booksolve and 100 Great Reads. First day of the new life. Very strange. Feeling almost skittish all day. Exhausted now, yet feverish also, like a child at the end of a party. All my life I have lied. I lied to escape, I lied to be loved, I lied for placement and power. I lied to lie. It was a way of living. Lies are life's almost anagram. Who speaks? It's her voice in my head. I fear it will not stop until I stop. Time and age have brought not wisdom, as they were supposed to do, but confusion and a broadening incomprehension, each year laying down another ring of nescience. I heard the paper crackle under one of the casters of the chair, like a snicker of admonitory laughter. Well, such are the cool, controlled, sharp sentences of John Banville's prose. He's quoted as saying, I wanted to be a great writer, I still do, but I also wanted to write beautiful sentences. And I think it's the poetic lyricism that some of his sentences have that make his work stand out. The quiet, calm and precise nature of his lush prose allows his reader time to consider and ponder on what he's writing. I've selected this novel, Shroud, as my choice of all the novels of his that I have read. Perhaps because I think it is the one that takes most takes its time. It's a novel where the plot is a setup, the staging in which the novel expands and expounds. The novel's a scaffold on which deeper psychological, philosophical and stylistic explorations is hung. Normally, Shroud, published in 2002, is a third book in the Frames trilogy, which began with the Book of Evidence in 1898. Not really. 1989, and continued with Ghosts in 1993. And in the three novels, Banville explores moral evasiveness, how guilt causes people to reinvent their idea of themselves as a way of distancing themselves from their past culpability and their present regret. And each of the books feature a narrator who cannot be trusted to be telling you the truth. Freddie Montgomery, the protagonist in the first two books of the trilogy, is an Irish academic, a narcissistic, articulate, deeply self-aware. He's deeply self-aware and immoral. And Freddie's voice is highly intellectual and reflective, often indulging in philosophical musings, aesthetic observations and self-justifications. His prose is elegant, cold, and often ironic, making him a classic, unreliable narrator. In Shroud, the protagonist is a different person. There's someone who's a kind of spiritual cousin to Freddie Montgomery. Both erudite, arrogant, and deeply damaged men grappling with lives built on lies. Shroud is inspired in part by the real life case of Paul de Man, a literary theorist exposed posthumously as having written pro-Nazi articles in occupied Belgium. Along with Jacques Derrida, he was part of an influential critical movement that went beyond traditional interpretation of literary texts to reflect on the epistemological difficulties inherent in any textual, literary or critical activity. Woo! Yeah. Derrida's a little bit beyond me. No, Derrida's a lot beyond me. Anyway, Banville remarked, I wasn't interested in de Man himself so much as his existential situation, a man who's made his life out of lies and who now has to deal with the collapse of that identity. And Banville's also noted that many intellectuals and artists rationalise, or there's another word I've got to tackle, aestheticize their compromises. I did it well, you see, I needn't have worried. Shroud centres around Axel Vander, an ageing and reclusive academic and literary critic living in Turin, Italy, and he harbours a deep, long-held secret that he's stolen the identity of a Jewish friend from his university days, essentially reinventing himself after World War II to escape his past of Nazi collaboration circles in Belgium. And the story begins when a young American woman called Cass Cleve contacts Vander, claiming to have uncovered his true identity, and her arrival sets off a chain of psychological confrontations and moral reckonings between the two characters. In essence, the novel asks us if a life of thought compensates for a life of lies, and what does it actually mean to be a fraud. The novel's full of digressions as Vander seeks to distract and obfuscate. It's got literary flourishes and looping internal monologues, and Shroud can be infuriating in that internally the narrative is decadent and self-reflexive. Vander's deceased wife, Magda, whom he married whilst retaining his false identity, haunts his current thoughts, and she suffered from mental illness, probably schizophrenia, and Vander alludes to her instability and delusions and breakdowns, often in cold, dismissive tones. His failure to acknowledge her suffering leads us to realise what he's capable of, what sort of a man he is, and how much damage his denial and detachment has wrought. I've got something to read here from page 60. Let me go to that. Here we go. My life with her was a special way of being alone. It was like living on intimate terms with a creature from another species. She was to me as remote and as inaccessible as some large, harmless herbivore, and at times I thought there was no mystery to her at all, that she was as blank as she seemed. And then at others I grew convinced that this appearance of unmoving calm that she displayed was a mask she had fashioned for herself, behind which she too must be locked in frantic strategies of calculation and control, practicing, like me, for a part she did not believe she would ever be able to fill convincingly. That's, yeah, okay, it's good, isn't it? Axel believes himself to be a consummate liar. Let's look at another little bit we've got here. Page 66. That's right. This is about one of his early meetings with Magda. We left the coffee shop by then, and we were walking down the street in the bitter cold and the gathering dusk, the traffic flowing along beside us through the slush like wreckage being carried on a river in sluggish spate. She leaned heavily on my arm, a dragging weight. She did not want to hear the things that I was telling her. She was tired of them. She resented the burden of her tragic fate, and mine. In the light of her resistance, my inventiveness burgeoned. Never before or since did I spin my tale so well or so convincingly as I did that night, weaving through the lies a few fine, shining threads of truth as the wet, white flakes fell fast around us, and the huddled, faceless figures of passers-by loomed up at us suddenly out of the lamplight and as quickly vanished behind us in the dark. I could not but admire my own performance. What a fabulist I was. What an artist. And I never did tell her the real, the whole, the tawdry truth. This is great writing. I just Love it. John Banville. Excellent. Um, Unreliable, even deplorable narrators in novels are a great attraction, in my opinion. They add an additional richness and verve to the text. Cass Cleave is the woman who exposes Vanda's fraud, but in doing so, she reveals to us that knowing truth is not necessarily liberating, and sometimes it's destructive. The truth can be destabilizing and even morally ambiguous. Her confrontation with Axel is not purely journalistic, it's intimate, obsessive, and in the end, tragic. Where Axel presents a suave, cynical, and polished facade, Cass is more volatile and youthful. Her novel explores the shifting attitudes of a younger generation towards the events of World War II and to those who may be complicit with the Nazis, who may have been complicit with the Nazis. For Cass, truth is a necessity, whereas for Axel, the past is something that can be rewritten. A strategy to avoid the emotional and moral damage that the pursuit of unflinching truth might inflict. Uh, Following 5 themes seem a pretty good summation of the novel's intent, why it's written. It looks at identity as performance. How much are we ourselves naturally, or do we invent ourselves? Even if not in to the extent that Axel is doing in the book. There's the inescapability of the past, something that's a subject of a lot of novels, and is certainly true of our own lives. What we've done in the past is can't be rubbed out. It's there, it stays with us, and unfortunately our memory is really good at remembering all the embarrassing and bad things that we did or happened to us. As truth against artifice, I think the book looks quite deeply at the blurring edge that is much wider than we would admit between truth and artifice. Sometimes truth is not something that you can pin down. It's not really there. Everything is artifice of some type or other. There's memory, trauma, and repression. The experiences that these characters, both Axel and Cass, have gone through, have made a huge impact on their lives. Trauma has a terrible effect upon us. We just carry it with us when we've been through shocking or traumatic events. Sometimes we don't recognise the impact that it's had upon us. And repression of that, if we don't accept it, can cause further damage. In psychoanalysis, it's all part of the thing. And finally, moral cowardice dressed as intellectualism. Yeah, well, this is one thing. It's quite easy, to use, I don't know, intellectual arguments in order to avoid difficulties, or to run away from problems in a practical sense by creating a construct, an intellectual construct that means you don't have to face them. So that's Shroud. I don't think it's a novel that I would necessarily recommend to a lot of readers. I think if you're looking for a plot-driven novel, look elsewhere. But if you're looking for something that's haunting, that's psychologically rich, with a brooding narrative, then Shroud is for you. If you love beautiful writing, John Banville is definitely somebody for you. If you've not read him, then yeah, pick up one of his books. Shroud, I think, may be a little bit of a specialised taste, maybe, I don't know, or limited taste. However, don't worry about the fact that it's the last one in a trilogy. It's not really. It's very much a standalone, and you don't need to have read the first two books in order to read the last one at all. Not really anything about there's no characters that follow over. There's no plot that does. It's the themes that are common to the three books in the Frames trilogy. So there we are. That's this book. I can't remember which number this is now, in the 100 Great Reads. And I shall see you soon for the next one. So from Booksolve, cheerio and happy reading to you all. Bye.